In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 5 key steps that I would take if I was starting to study AAA from scratch today. I've seen so many students prepare for this exam and make the same mistakes when they get off on the wrong foot. And by the end of the video, you will know exactly how to approach this exam. You'll know how to avoid the mistakes that trip most students up. And you'll know how to give yourself the very best chance of passing AAA first time. Step 1, the most important step, is understanding that AAA is a very different type of exam to the earlier and other ACCA exams. Now, the pass rate for AAA, this is a shocking one. It's always 40% or even lower. Wow! That means that out of everyone who sits the AAA exam, maybe even 7 out of 10 of them don't pass. And think about who these people are. AAA is one of the options exams that we sit at the end of the ACCA qualification. Students have passed lots of exams to get here. They're ACCA exam, they're experts. Most of them don't pass. So why do they fail this exam? Well, it's because AAA is a very different type of exam to the earlier technical exams. For those technical exams, students read through the textbook, they memorize the technical content, they practice calculations, they learn the standards word for word, and they pass. And then they get to AAA and try to apply the same technique, and it doesn't work. You can't memorize your way to passing AAA. It's a skills-based exam. It's testing your ability to apply your knowledge in an exam scenario. Not whether you've got the knowledge, but whether you can apply it. So what I would do differently if I was starting from scratch today is I would really get my head around that fact. I put aside what worked for the earlier exams. I stopped thinking about AAA as being like the others. And I start thinking about what I need to do to pass this exam. Almost every mark in the AAA exam comes from using the scenario, understanding it, and being able to write points and answers that are in the context of that scenario that answer the requirement. If you write generic answers in AAA, you will not score marks. Anything that comes straight from here that you've memorized, it won't score. Instead, you have to take what's in here and tailor it and apply it to the scenario. And once you understand that fundamental difference between AAA and the other exams, the way you're going to approach your studies will be radically different. Step 2 is making sure that your financial reporting knowledge is solid. Now, surprisingly, the core brought forward knowledge you need for advanced auditing is not auditing knowledge. It's financial reporting knowledge. You really do need to have strong fundamentals in accounting standards. That's because at least 10 marks in the AAA exam, if not 15 marks, rely on your accounting standards knowledge. That's knowledge that you'll have got from studying the strategic business reporting exam. Now, that's a big chunk of this exam. A big chunk of auditing is about knowing the financial reporting. Now, what this means in the exam, how it comes up, is that the examiner will give you a detailed scenario about a company, and they'll be doing some things incorrectly. And as the auditor, you have to explain what they're doing incorrectly. You've got to spot risks and problems for the financial statements. And a lot of those problems will be because the company is incorrectly accounting for things. They've misunderstood some key financial reporting principles, and so they're doing things wrong. Now, a lot of students think that, well, it doesn't matter what order I sit these advanced papers in for ACCA. I've already got a bit of a grounding in accounting. I'll be fine. But really, you need to have studied and passed the SBR exam, Strategic Business Reporting, before you move on to AAA. At the very least, you need to have studied it, because that knowledge you get there in SBR is fundamental for AAA. So what I would do if I was starting out today is make sure before I start studying AAA that I've already done SBR. and that I've gone back over my SBR notes. I've revised the key accounting standards that come up regularly in the AAA exam. And those key standards, particularly its group accounting, that comes up absolutely loads. Revenue recognition, provisions, accounting for intangibles, goodwill impairments, leases is another favourite of the examiner, and inventory is another one as well. Now, you don't need to know all of these standards in absolute detail. It's not the SBR exam again. It's more of a sort of high-level understanding that's required. Understanding the key accounting principles, so that in an exam scenario, when they're breaching one of those principles, you can spot it and explain it. So if you are shaky on any of your core accounting standards that I've mentioned there, then it's really worth going back and revising those before you start your AAA studies. Go back to SBR. Get this foundation right, and you're already well ahead of most students. Step 3, do what the examiner says, not what they do. The AAA examiner puts out lots of content to help students to prepare for the exam. And a key piece of that content is the model answers to previous exams. And if you follow those model answers, the examiner's answers, and you write like the examiner, you will fail the AAA exam. If you write like the examiner, how can you fail? Well, the examiner produces these answers as a reference tool, as a study guide. They have not written them under time pressure. And the time pressure in the AAA exam is very, very strong, severe. It's really brutal time pressure. If you try to write what the examiner puts into their answers under the time pressure of the exam, you won't even get through half of the exam paper, let alone getting all the way to the end. So you've got to see the examiner's published answers as a reference tool, something for you to study from, not something that you should try to emulate in the exam. Now, I've worked with lots of prize-winning students over the years, and those prize-winning students, when I review their work, it doesn't look anything like the examiner's answers. What they're great at is being practical under the timed conditions of the exam. So they use those examiner's model answers as a reference tool to compare their own answers against, to see, I missed this thing, or I misunderstood that core concept, or now I understand what the examiner was getting at with that question. But what they don't do is try to memorize those answers. And what they don't do is try to write like the examiner in the real thing. You've got to be practicing exam questions for yourself. You have to be developing your own robust exam technique, your own approach. You're going to need to develop that approach for yourself. But the key thing is that you're doing it with time pressure as well, so that that approach is robust and it will work under the conditions of the exam. By developing your own exam technique and your own style that is practical and works under exam pressure, you are much more likely to get a pass. Use the examiner's answers to see things you've misunderstood, but do not see the examiner's answers as what you are trying to write in the exam. Oh, by the way, if passing AAA is your priority right now, I do run my own course where I take you through everything, the most efficient journey possible to passing this exam. It's tuition, it's revision, it's mock exams, and it's all designed and delivered by me personally. And if they do the work, they do pass. But if things don't quite work out, they can come back on my course again for free. Now, if that sounds helpful for you, there's a link down there in the description. Step 4, little and often wins every time. Most students prepare for the AAA exam in long study sessions, 4, 5, 6 hours of study in a long session at the weekend. And they do that because life gets in the way. During the week, they're busy at work, family commitments, caring responsibilities. Their study ends up being at the weekend in a long session. And the nature of AAA, that it's a technical subject, but very, very applied, where you have to get good at applying your knowledge. It's just not effective to do that. It's a study in a long study session, diminishing returns. You will get way more out of your study sessions if you study in short bursts. 45 minutes to 1 hour in 3 or 4 study sessions per week is hugely more effective than doing one long session at the weekend. It's really important that you break your sessions down into manageable chunks. You'll get a lot more out of them that way. That means that you've got to plan out your studies and you've got to work out when during the week you are going to study. Many students plan to study in the evenings, but work gets in the way or something comes up, a social occasion, and they don't do their planned study. And that's why it ends up being at the weekend, saved up as a big long session. What I would do instead is plan my study sessions in the morning, before work, before the kids get up. I get up an hour early and do my 45-minute or 50-minute planned study session, and nothing gets in the way. Yeah, okay, I need a strong coffee to get myself going. And yes, I'm losing out a bit of sleep first thing in the morning. But my boss isn't already at me. I'm not dealing with loads of problems of the day, and I'm not worn out and exhausted from everything that's happened already that day. I do my study when I'm fresh, first thing in the morning. And then I bounce through the day, knowing that I've achieved that goal of getting my study session in. 3 or 4 of those during the week, and I am racing towards a pass. Now, this matters because getting into good study habits early on means that you build up your exam technique right from the start, and you're much more likely to pass the exam. Step 5 is practicing against the clock right from the start. Now, the number one reason that students fail the AAA exam is because of time management issues. The time pressure in this exam is brutal. You have 3 hours and 15 minutes to do the exam, and there's loads to read and absolutely loads to do. Way too much to do in the time that you have. Every single student finds the time pressure brutal. And if you are not used to the time pressure, what happens to a student in the exam is they overrun a little bit on the first questions they do, but they'll make the time up later. Then they keep overrunning because every question is long. Every question has too much to read. Every question has too much to do. They never make the time up. They fall further and further behind. They know they're falling behind, and in their stomach, they have this horrible rising feeling of doom and dread. This is going wrong. I'm going overrunning. I know I'm not going to finish the final question, and I know I'm not going to pass. And they get more and more stressed. That's the student who is not used to the time pressure. That's the student who has not been practicing against the clock. Now, passing this exam is not about being perfect. It's about being able to earn 50 marks in the time that you have. It's about being practical. And the time pressure is real. The time pressure is intense. So what I would suggest that you do is you get used to that time pressure very early on. Right from the start of your studies, you're practicing questions against the clock. And that means looking at the number of marks, and to work out the amount of time you have is the number of technical marks times 2.25 minutes. So a 10-mark question, you get 22.5 minutes. And right from the start of your studies, as you are practicing exam questions, you're getting used to doing what you can in that 22.5 minutes. That has 2 massive benefits for you. Firstly, you get used to that rising feeling of uncomfortableness, and it just becomes normal, and you still be able to generate good answers under that feeling of stress. And secondly, you start to develop techniques and tactics that really help you to be more brief in the way that you write your answers so that you can stick to the time. It's really important that you're practicing exam questions under time pressure so that in the exam it feels normal for you and you're much more likely to do your best in the exam and go on and pass. So that's exactly how I would approach my AAA exam preparation if I was starting from scratch today. But here's the thing, you can have a great study plan, the perfect study plan. But if you don't know how to answer the core questions that come up in the exam, you're really going to struggle to pass. Now, a core question that always comes up is on audit risk. And so I recommend that you carry on and watch the next video where I'm going to show you exactly how to structure your answer and to break down the requirement and write a great answer for an audit risk question. I'll see you there.